Well, I'm so pleased to be here and that I'm following on two excellent talks. And so hopefully what I'm going to tell you is that not only you should do what you've been advised to do, but you must. Okay? So, and the reason I say must is because of the evidence that I'm going to show you. So we set up Portia because at the time, it was 1997, the government was concerned about the underrepresentation of women in STEM. And being scientists, we thought we have to find an evidence and show that it actually matters. Does it matter? And it does matter. So, and we chose the name Portia because, of course, in Shakespearean plays, Portia is a female character that has got very strong sense of self-worth. And so we thought we wanted to do this, even though in Julius Caesar, Portia commits suicide for her husband. But however, then we had also Portia labiata in Australia, a small spider that is very strategic, how she hunts. And artificial intelligence, people use it to model intelligent behavior. Of course, this Portia labiata spins the web and jumps on its prey. And so we felt that kind of gave us a model of how we should work, be small, strategic, and jump on opportunities. And that's what we have been doing. This other symbol is for a project we currently have from the Elsevier Foundation, and I will talk about it because that is really addressing the needs of women at early career stage. So the first thing, so what we learned, and I said my title was what I, if I knew now what I knew, or then what I know now, the three things that actually I know now that I didn't know then. One is that the gender role stereotypes start very early in life. By the age of 9 months, babies can distinguish between the female and male roles. By the age of 2 years old, we already have created our own stereotypes. Okay? And that is a very important. I come from Poland. I was educated under the communist regime. We did not have a question about gender issues. At least they were not in the culture. Poland has only now, last few months, included in its dictionary the word gender. The word gender did not exist. So that was one thing. And the other thing is that, does it matter to science that women are underrepresented in science? And all the evidence now shows that indeed it does. Not only that women should be represented as researchers, but also as subject of research and as target for research. This has not been historically, and therefore science has got much more evidence for men than it has for women, with important repercussions about what science is for and about. And the other one was that basically I have not really given any thought when my career was progressing to the landscape in which my career was supposed to be taking place. I did not understand the rule of the games. And so it's important to understand the rules of the games. And here is one aspect of these rules of the games, is how organizations organize people in institutions. So this is the blue one is from the report by the League of European Research Universities. And you can see that it matches very well the structure that is from the website from Bristol University, and that concerns the Hay Job Evaluation System. The Hay Job Evaluation System was designed in America in 1950s, and it was to allow manufacturers evaluate jobs and pay people appropriately for each job. It was not designed for universities. However, it has been now adopted by many, many universities. And so the important thing to notice about this graph is that it has got pathways, and you are not allowed to cross from pathways, okay? So if you get into this pathway, which is about teaching, yes, and you spend a lot of time on teaching, you have a less time on doing research, and then if you move somewhere else and you want to demonstrate your research capability, you don't have it as much as if you went into that path. So this is quite important. And also at each level, there are evaluation criteria. And if you don't understand this evaluation criteria, then you're not going to be able to prepare yourself to move up. The other thing is about Hay evaluation system is that it has been criticized for being skewed to value jobs at the top. And that makes it gender biased towards women who tend, even in manufacturing, tend to be at, in the middle or the bottom levels. So I have not seen any studies that looked at it from the point of view of academic world, but it certainly is an opportunity for someone to do a good research project. So as it already has been said, you have to be strategic. Otherwise, you get caught up in the eddies, and you probably have gathered from introduction about my own career that I was not strategic. I was non-strategic, and so my own fault, but never mind. So this is a figure that is always quoted, and people always looked at the end point. That is why there's an imbalance in the leadership roles, and very few people look at what is happening in between. And we have started looking at what is happening in between, because clearly it's a cumulative process that women end up here and not there. So basically, I would like to tell you what is happening in this part so you can take your own and better action and plan more strategically on your career. So the first thing is to note, and this is data from European Research Council, is the membership of teams. There has been hardly any work done on trying to find out how teams are selected. So the thing about the European Research Council grants is that they are given to individuals, and each grant then creates a team, and on average, it employs between 5 to 7 team members. Okay? So this is data of how many PhDs and how many postdocs are present in the grants that European Research Council funds. So the important thing is to look at the left side, is the one for the life sciences. Okay? As you can see, many more female PhDs than men. But then just at the level of postdoc, this thing reverses, and we have suddenly more men being invited into those teams than women. So, and this also occurs in social sciences and humanities. It's obviously expected for physical sciences and engineering because there are fewer women to start with. So this is the important thing, that point between PhD experience and your expectation of your postdoc. So here's the data from a survey that was done by Institute of Physics and the Royal Society of Chemistry. And this is for chemists, and shows the disillusionment that women go through as their PhDs progress, yes? 72% wanted to stay in research in the year 1, 37% in year 3, yes? Doesn't happen to men, all right? So what happens to those women? Obviously, they have already invested 3 years in undergraduate. They were prepared to invest another 3 or 4 years into their PhD. Why should they suddenly decide that this is not a career for them? So in the surveys, lots of explanations are given. Women apparently find the fields too competitive. They feel isolated. The work-life balance issues. Both men and women have a very poor career awareness. They feel overlooked, and they feel that their merit is not being recognized. They have too little time for research. They have too much time taken by non-research staff. They want to work on another problem. Their experiments are not going well. They feel there is no job security. They want a family. They want life, but they still love science. So let's have a look now. Out here, compare all the projects that have been funded by European Research Council, all the fields, and every seniority level, to the proportions of women and men who are the candidates who are in the European universities. Yes? And you can see that at each level, women get pushed out from the system. Are they being marginalized? And if you are marginalized, you feel powerless. And it's a very critical point to then say to yourself, well, maybe the option is just to give up and go and do something else. And that things level up at the level of principal investigator and professor, full professor level, yes? So that's this European Research Council is actually doing quite a lot now. They have set up a gender equality plan. They are actually investigating what else they can do in order to improve the number of women applying for the grants, and also, well, they were applying for the grants. There was a workshop in Brussels in December, and I showed this to them, and I said, you have to do something much earlier on at the formation of the research teams. So when someone asks about quotas, yes, the quotas are not only for the leadership level. The quotas really should be also considered, or not the proportional representations, should be also considered at each level when the research teams are formed. So what happens at the PI level, okay? So this is again data from European Research Council over all the calls. Over 3,400 grants are awarded. Remember, each grant employs between 5 or 7 researchers, so you're talking about 25,000 people. And but what this figure shows is that there is a small but systematic preference for men to get the grants. Okay? So clearly this is something in the system that favors men's success, and women have to be aware of it. Not only that more of them have to apply for grants, there has to be something that the institutions that award grants have to be also aware that there is implicit bias towards promoting success of men, and across all the fields, okay? So it's not that there are no women in those fields. There are plenty of women in life sciences and in social sciences, but this thing carries across. And the similar, there's not as much data available historical for UK research councils, but clearly there's also suggestion that there's a bias towards men. And then if you take your European look, again, across all the whole Framework 7 program, if you take all these programs together, only 20% of the contacts on scientific matters are women. So it would seem that we have a catch-22 situation here. The balance between the number of people who are at PI level and the number of and the proportion of women as professors is more or less the same. So if you want more women to apply for to be PIs, you need more professors. But you can't get more professors unless they get the experience as PIs. So here's my friend Nancy Hopkins. Nancy Hopkins is an excellent biologist at MIT, and she's also very famous in the world of gender and science issues because she basically transformed the cultures of MIT. She, when she got there, she wanted, first of all, when she got there, she was sitting at their desk just working on something, and a senior male colleague came to the room and put his hands on her breast and said, wasn't it nice to have a woman in the lab? So she felt sorry for him, but actually, you know, this is just totally wrong. Anyway, but then she wanted her own lab at MIT, and she was finding a bit opposition about having this. So she got together other women scientists, and they went around and they basically measured the labs. And they found that men had bigger labs than women, and the labs were much better equipped than women. Fortunately, they had the support from the head of MIT at the time, and changes were introduced. And so she is kind of a hero for all the other people who work in the same kind of areas. But the thing that we shared is, we realized, is that her supervisor, the mentors did not exist in those days, her supervisor was James Watson, my supervisor was Maurice Wilkins. Okay. So basically, we started from that point of view of having access to a mentor. We started from the same position. Unfortunately, my mentor, Maurice Wilkins, at that time became very interested in social responsibility of science. And he introduced, so not only that he set up the biology physics course, and I was one of the first people who did this course, but he also introduced us to the social responsibility for science. And I just found that very interesting. But also I was struggling because going to do biophysics was a second choice. My first choice was to be actually a doctor, a medical doctor. So all the swirls and things, it was me fighting with myself as to what is it that I wanted to do. Different thing happened to Nancy Hopkins. James Watson just told her, that's what you need to do to succeed in science. And that's what she did. And she loved working at MIT and so on. So I just feel that maybe having a mentor is not enough. You really have to also understand, where is it that you are really coming from and where you want to go. And this you can do by learning from role models. And there's this AcademiaNet database set up by the Bosch Foundation. In September, there were 1,400 entries in there. Each woman is nominated by her institution. So they are there to demonstrate that there is a pool of capable women who should be on committees, should be invited to be professors and so on. So they are kind of role models. The Wellcome Trust is going to add about 200 entries to this very, very soon. So this database is growing. It started in Germany, but now it has got women from United States and from across Europe. So it's an excellent example of lots of role models. And you can look at their CVs and pick up little paths that you feel will suit you. And we have actually project with Bosch Foundation to analyze all those entries and try to extract, the little paths. So it's not the whole pathway, the little paths that make a difference to when you're planning your career. So the rule number one is that science career is more than a job. There are really three things going on. It's you in your institutions having a job for which you have a contract and so on, but there is also you as the kind of a contributor to the scientific knowledge. This is your cognitive career, and of course your field, and you have to understand the community in which you are working. And you need to understand all those rules of the game. And then, of course, this is all enveloped in your own personal circumstances, but also in a societal cultures. And must be said that society is pretty ambivalent towards women's success. They encourage women to gain education, they promote women in higher education, but then there is not the same perception that women should pursue their own career aspirations as men can. But anyway, that's life. This is changing slowly. But by knowing this, I think it's easier to plan. So this stuff that for the next 3 slides come really from all the sort of research that has been done on women, men, and their science careers. Yes, what actually what is important. So one thing is, as I already mentioned about Nancy Hopkins' experience at MIT, is the availability and access to resources. If there are situations where there are labs, people want to, or equipment, and there is a long queue of people wanting to get access to this equipment, you want to be there, have the same access as the other people. Yes. Also, if your institution, how much actually independence you are given, yes? Who is it that you have to report to? Do you have sufficient time for research? Don't get distracted, okay? Sometimes, not sometimes, actually, well, this is the research evidence, women are given much more of a teaching load So are there collaborative opportunities? Don't feel isolated. You have to be visible. Then, of course, now it's normal that, employment policies have to be fair and that there cannot be discrimination, but are they woman-friendly? This is also something that needs to be looked at. And is the assessment in recruitment and advancement fair and transparent? So the Hayes system, evaluation system, is supposed to make the recruitment and the promotion transparent, but it's still biased. Okay? And then you have to look around if there is a gender balance, because of course if you are the only woman in the department, you will feel isolated. And if there are any female role models, and it's the certain awareness in the cultures about gender equality. And then it's about navigating the cognitive pathway. And this is here really who makes decisions about the problems that you want to do. So who chose your PhD topic and who has chosen your postdoc topic? And is it the same, or have you had any say in it? Or are you doing someone else's research? And are your research narrow or broad? Because if they are broad, is there publishing opportunity in as much as if you were doing something quite narrow? Again, how much time you have to actually do research, and how many opportunities you have to gain this important PI record, and are you publishing in the right journals? And then do you really understand your field? Yes. What is the average length of the project? Who are the people who worked in it? Who are the people who set up the priorities? What are the editorial policies? And what are the sort of strategic decisions that need to be made? And now the obstacles. So this is the evidence. Okay? Fewer women than men apply for research grants, in particular for advanced grants. Women apply for less money than men. Women's research publication rates are affected by the personal factors, and that happens early on, and it just carries through. And of course, peer review score more highly research that is like their own. And men receive much better recommendation letters than women. Okay? So if someone writes your reference, read it and correct it, because you will be described as a good team member and a man will be described as a problem solver. Women and men professors rate male job applicants higher than identically qualified female, and they offer them more money and mentoring support. This is just from the age of 2. And in the academic promotion at the associate professor level, both women and men on committees tend to prefer men. But once it's the full professor, they look for someone who is like their own sex. So that explains why there's maybe such a big drop right at the end of the pipeline. And even at junior level, this is from the EMBO study, men are paid more, they have less teaching obligations, and they have a higher status position. So there's lots of juggling to do for women in particular, and one it's called life. And sometimes we tend to exaggerate the life bit. And the thing to remember is that there are many possible pathways and many possible types of careers. And we feel now that there are like 4 scenarios, and they are divided by basically about the amount of intellectual independence and your recognition in a community. So right there, scenario number 1 is you might actually stay in the same department where you did PhD, you do the same topic that you did for PhD, you work with the same supervisor. It's fine. It could be just the right thing for you, but you might also want to be like Jackie was here, yes? And that's a different scenario. And for this project that we have from Elsevier Foundation, we bring people who are within the institutions whom we would call expert advisors, so from HR, career advice, research supervision, people who run labs and so on. And we have lots of role models, and we bring the research background as to what are the pitfalls and opportunities, and we try to women to understand the landscape in order so they can see how their own circumstances fits within this landscape and where they could go. And I think right now it's a very good opportunity. Horizon 2020 has replaced FP7 project. After a lot of pressure, Horizon 2020 now actually recognizes gender as not only as a cross-cutting issue for research, but also for gender equality. There has to be more women involved, not just 20% of the people who are responsible for this at the PA level. So this is look at the Horizon 2020. There might be a lot of opportunities for you, yes, to have collaborations and to mobility. Apply for the ERC grants and look at the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, because that is there's lots of opportunities there. And also institutions are changing. Institutions now recognize that there are issues for women, and there are a number of actions that people are looking and feel they have to monitor and demonstrate that they're treating women fairly. And here are remember that science career takes 40 years. Don't give up too early, because it is really an interesting thing to do, and you should be there. It's important for science that you are there. And there's 3 photos out, the workshop that we did in Berlin, in Tel Aviv, and Zurich. And you know, I feel sorry for the women in Tel Aviv University. They have to go to the army. Society privileges women who have babies. Women PhDs who come to this workshop, they might have 3 children, okay? The questions that they ask, do I really still need to have a postdoc? Do I need 2 postdocs? So, which is quite different to what happened with the women in Berlin and in ETH Zurich. So, you can find more of this information on our website, portiaweb.org.uk. Please have a look at the Gender Summit. Do come to the Gender Summit. It's going to be in Brussels on the 30th of June and 1st of July. You will meet a lot of people there, and you can make lots of contact. And a lot of the evidence that I have talked about is on that website, genderinscience.org. And if you have any questions, just send me an email.